What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 136 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by my brother from the same mother and the harshest adjudicator in the business, Lester Jones.
Whoa, breaking out big words. I don't know what that means, but thank you.
And I won't even do the whole rhyme, but we got the Ninth Wonder, Chocolate Thunder, and you know this week he's passing out bullets, or passing out, I can't even do it, passing out dick like bullets from John Wick. The phenomenal A.J. Singh.
Are they like big rubber bullets that I'm aiming at certain orifices?
And they just bounce off everyone they hit.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys couldn't have guessed by now, we, of course, this will be our review of John Wick Chapter 4, which we saw just last night. And so for anybody of you guys who haven't watched or listened to our reviews, what we do is just first kind of a nice surface level spoiler-free review, and then, you know, unlike other reviewers who just give you that top-level stuff, then we're going to do a nice scene-by-scene breakdown, a real in-depth review, if you will. So yeah, let me go ahead and I'll bring up the old Rotten Tomatoes page. By the way, this movie's sitting pretty good at 95%. On the old tomato meter.
Critic or audience?
Actually, both. 95%, 95%.
Oh,
They're actually in agreement. So, the official synopsis of this movie reads as thus. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. The movie stars Keanu Reeves as John Wick, Donny Yen as Kane, Bill Skarsgard as Marquise, Laurence Fishburne as the Bowery King, Hiroyuki Sanada as Shimazu, Shamier Anderson as the Tracker, a.k.a. Mr. Nobody, the late Lance Reddick as Sharon, Rina Sawayama as Akira, Scott Adkins as Killa, Ian McShane as Winston, and Marco Zaror as Chidi. So yeah, I'm actually curious, especially you, how you felt about this, because like me and AJ put it out there that we're fans of the John Wick franchise. I know you said you watched the first one and you thought it was kind of half-assed. You think you might have watched the second one and you did not watch the third one. So coming into this blind, how did you feel?
I mean, action's not really my genre, but yeah, it was decent. It was all right.
Well, I'll say this, much like you, I tend to not like movies that are just action with nothing else. But I've always felt that the John Wick series did enough to, with character, to make me, you know, care enough about him. And then also just all the world building stuff they do, I find interesting in the other movies.
Well, I'll say this, like, if you're going to watch this movie, you have to suspend a lot of disbelief.
Oh, I mean, that goes for all of these movies.
I mean, it is, yeah, there's a lot of problems, but yeah, you can kind of look the other way.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, it's definitely a heightened world, and some things you might scoff at, but you're like, for the most part, you can be like, okay, I'm in this world. I can buy them inside this world.
Yeah, I mean, I think every movie, like, you know, most movies that deal with like fiction in the sense, like you have to use your imagination a little bit and let it kind of slide on certain things. You know?
Yeah, I think as long as you think it's playing by the rules of its world,
some things
it's usually
you will
okay.
naturally suspend disbelief if it's artful. And this one, I was like, okay, suspending my disbelief now. Let it go. We're going to hit a couple things where, like, what I was thinking, like, I couldn't get out of my head, but we'll get to that. Like, just, it's too much.
Now, I've been thinking about this since last night of where I would rank this movie along the other John Wicks. And, like, I think I might rank it as my least favorite, but that being said, I still liked it. I think that just shows like the strength of the John Wick franchise. Like, I think for me, I would probably go 2, 1, 3, and then this one. But I think they're all a lot of fun, and as we'll get into this movie, like, I still think this movie is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
like,
really.
I would totally recommend it to people to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any kind of like notes you guys would want to hit on, like before we get into more spoilery stuff? I mean, I will say like I think this franchise always does a good job of introducing like new assassins that are interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought Donnie Yen's Kane character was
excellent.
he was cool.
Yeah, he definitely added a lot to this movie that I was not sure they were going to be able to do with like a new bad guy. So,
But yeah,
well,
I
not
really
bad guy, but
well. Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I mean, John Wick himself is kind of he's
Right.
he's an assassin. Like he's done bad stuff, but mostly to bad people, so you forgive it. But yeah, if you guys don't got, well, I guess just also just props to Keanu Reeves for always like you can tell he puts in the work on these movies. Like these got to be like I'm sure in some instances like they use a stunt double, but I know he's doing a lot of his own stunts, and these movies look demanding in terms of stunts.
And
like he's putting in the work.
props to all the stunt people in this movie. I saw there's a part in this movie later on where somebody takes a massive fall. And that looked like a real body.
This whole franchise really is an ode to stuntmen and stunt women.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and just what they can do and the amazing things they can pull off. It's pretty impressive when you really think about it. Okay, yeah, guys. So are you guys ready for spoilers?
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Spoilers ahead. We're gonna get into it. Okay, so we open the movie with John Wick punching a punching bag.
Yeah, some wooden piece or something.
It's like a towel wrapped around a 2x4 or something.
Yeah.
Right, something like that, yeah. This is interspersed with Laurence Fishburne's Bowery character talking to himself, I guess. And he shows up.
Exposition.
Right.
I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. Like, I was having trouble understanding him, and then, like, whatever he was saying, I wasn't sure it made sense.
His character's kind of like that, though. He's always like...
Speaks in riddles and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Speaks kind of like that. But anyway, he shows up with a new bulletproof suit for John. And also for, like, no real reason, he, like, lights up this, like, elaborate, like, circle of fire for some reason.
Oh, yeah, just for entering the building?
Yeah. I'm like... I think he could have just had lights somehow. I don't know.
Who set this up for him?
Anyway, he asked John if John is ready, and of course John says, "Yeah."
Which is funny because, like, right before the movie, you were telling me, like, how, like, 50% of his job was saying yeah and sure. And then it just opens with him saying yeah and goes to something.
Every movie, it's like, yeah, sure. And then, like, when he'll always, like, formally, like, say the person's name, like, Winston, Kane. That's most of his dialogue in these movies. But it works. It works. So we cut to John now on horseback in the desert, hunting down, like, 3 other men on horses. He ends up shooting all of them.
They're like the people that he met in the last movie in the desert. So
Right. So if you were lost in the third movie, like he met like the ultimate like elder, like king of the high table in this desert, and that's who he's going back to now. Yeah. So like he gets to this elder, and I forget exactly what the elder tells him, but he's basically like, killing me is pointless. There's going to be another one of me or whatever. And he kills him anyway.
Yeah.
He's like,
Oh, this guy's just like sitting on like this elaborate like carpet and stuff out in the desert.
it was that way in the third movie too. Yeah.
It's like, but also like chasing down the bad guys before he gets there. I'm like, he's riding on horseback and the horses look great and he's like shooting at them, but like he is not doing a great job of hitting them.
it must be hard to shoot.
I mean, shooting off a horse isn't easy, I'm sure.
I was thinking that because he is obviously like a great shot, like an excellent shot. But yeah, apparently, even if you're great on horseback, it makes it difficult.
Well, it's like the other guys didn't seem like they were armed, so like maybe just close the gap a little bit and then shoot them. I don't know.
Yeah. And then
He's like, I want him to be afraid.
it's true. The Mongolians were killing people like crazy on horseback with arrows.
Yeah, with arrows, yeah.
So now we cut to Clancy Brown's character. I don't know if they ever actually name his character. They maybe do, but he works for this Frenchman called the Marquis. Is that how you pronounce it?
The Marquis.
Now, is that his title or is that his actual name?
No, it's the title.
He's the Marquis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he goes to the Continental in New York, and he basically notifies Winston that they're shutting down the New York Continental, and that he's got this huge hourglass that's
In a bag.
which I thought was maybe a little unnecessary. Like they can't use any like new technology.
Like, man, that must be an expensive hourglass. Like brought it all the way. And
But he's like, you have an hour to evacuate the building. And I guess this is like kind of punishment for his actions. Because the third movie like ends with him basically to, prove his loyalty to the High Table. He shoots John Wick off the roof of the Continental. But we get the sense that he shot him in a way that he thought John would survive it.
He doesn't fall like 20 stories onto a Volkswagen and just like walk away.
oh, he hits.
He pretty much does, actually.
He hits like some bars, some poles and stuff.
It's like, that really broke the fall.
So him and how do you pronounce Lance Reddick's character? Is it Chiron?
Chiron, yeah.
Chiron.
Sharona.
They're going to have a meeting with the Marquis. And he has this discussion with him where like he's like, did you know that like when this like I think it was like an Old West outlaw was being hanged, they asked him about it and he just said like such is life. And he's like, what kind of attitude is that, or something like along those lines, right? I just set that up because it'll come back later. Anyway, basically Winston asks the Marquis for a second chance, but he says no. He ends up blowing up the Continental, and then he kills Chiron for Winston's failings in the third movie. So unfortunately, the late Lance Reddick, not in this movie for a very long time. Doesn't.
I think the movie does a good job of like remembering him though.
He did at least get. I liked it in the third movie. He got that action scene
That's
at
true,
the Continental where he, we got to actually see him in action a little bit. So the Marquis tells his underling to contact Kane, who is played by Donny Yen. So we go right over it. We're introduced to Kane, who is blind, which is an interesting wrinkle in this movie. And he's listening to who we find out is his daughter play the violin in this park. And I wrote, now this is something I was a little confused on. He cannot be in contact with her due to an agreement he has with the High Table, I guess. But my thing is if the High Table wanted control over him, couldn't they just be like, you can't defy us or we're going to kill your daughter? Why does he have to actually agree that he's not going to see his daughter at all?
I was confused by that too. I
Just salt in the wound.
I didn't know if they had an agreement that he couldn't see her, or if he was just trying to stay away from her so they couldn't get to her. But then,
I mean, they definitely know about her.
Yeah, there's a line later that says something like "you were too close" or something.
He tells her in like the next scene, like, you were too close to her today or whatever. So like there definitely is an agreement that he like can't.
What I took away from that was like maybe he got too close in the sense that they followed him and then got to her. Like, you got a little too close, so we found her because of you today.
But the other thing I thought was weird is that he kept flipping open like this pocket watch type of thing that has her picture in it, and then I'm like, well, he's blind. Like he's not looking at that picture. That's just for us.
His blindness is
questionable.
called into a couple times, more than a couple times.
Maybe he's just legally blind.
Because like there's times where he like struggles to do a normal thing, maybe, but then like he's doing extraordinary things.
Right.
I was going to talk about this too, but yeah, like he'll have these huge fight scenes where he's just like kicking everybody's ass and like shooting people and like just all kinds of stuff that no blind person could do. And like they set up one scene where he uses like doorbells so he can
like motion detectors.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have that here.
But yeah, he does these big fight scenes, and then like after the fight scene, he's like groping around for stuff like he's Velma looking for glasses or something.
Well, yeah, it is weird because like sometimes you're like, how did he just shoot that guy or whatever? But then at other times in the fight, I do like he'll have these motions where he's kind of like reaching out with his stick, like it looks like he is searching for the enemy before he like kills him or whatever.
They do a good job with the details in this movie, so I'm sure if like I watch this channel where they go over like all this stuff in slow motion and stuff. It's called Canadian Lad. And he breaks down like all these little nuanced things that are happening, and it did seem like the people who attack him usually make a noise before they hit him or something, so he can kind of sense like
He's got like the daredevil power.
Maybe could be.
But yeah, I still really liked his character and his movements and stuff, so it worked for me. So yeah, after where he's in the scene at the park, he has a meeting with the Marquise, played by Bill Skarsgard, and he tells basically he contracts Kane to kill John. He gives him his name in Braille, and we see him like do that. He doesn't want to fight John because he says he's retired, and also John is an old friend of his. But basically, he ends up agreeing to it because they have that leverage over his daughter. Now, is he doing it because they're threatening to hurt his daughter, or do they actually agree that, okay, if you could do this, then you can have contact with your daughter? That's one thing I was a little unsure of.
I don't know. There's a line that he has something to live for and die for.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's both, I guess.
Yeah, I was under the impression that they were going to kill his daughter if he didn't do what he was supposed to do.
Okay. So now we cut to Japan. I believe they mentioned this is Osaka, right? Don't they say it's the Osaka Continental? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here we're introduced to Mr. Nobody, who is this African American guy that has a dog with him at all times. He gets checked into the Osaka Continental.
I got to intervene here. I mentioned on the podcast a show called Winona Earp a long time ago, like a couple years ago maybe. This guy was from that show. I said that at the time that he was like a terrible actor, and I was like, he's never going to get another job again. And I was blown away to see him in this movie. And to be fair, he did a much better job in this movie than that show. So I don't know, like props, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, sometimes actors do get better. They like actually improve.
Yeah, he looked a lot better.
So he gets checked into the Osaka Continental by Akira, who is the daughter of the manager. Now, in Japanese, like this is written out as like Shimazu, but I think they just call him like Shizu or something. Like because Japanese names are pronounced like different, where they like skip like letters that we would typically pronounce and stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea.
So I think it was like Shizu or something like that, but I can't say for
Shitsu.
sure. We find out that Shizu is illegally harboring John, who is also an old friend of his, because John apparently has a lot of old friends in the business. Agents of the Marquise show up to search the hotel on suspicion that John is there. So this, and I guess I should point out that like once Shizu is notified that like those guys are there, he leaves, and Akira has a conversation with John where basically like she's upset that he's even there because she knows that he's putting them all at risk. So this ends up leading to a conflict between Shizu's men, who are armed with bows and arrows and swords, and like the Marquise's men, who are armed with guns. And that fight goes on for a while, like guys getting hit with arrows. But there is a guy named Chibi who is like basically the Marquise's right-hand man, and he's like a pretty stout fellow.
Oh, he shows up multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, first the Japanese guy demands that they leave their weapons even if they're going to search.
Right.
And when they refuse, then like all these archers come over and the lights go out.
Right.
But it's like a small group of guys initially.
Right.
And they've all got like the arrows pointed at them. And so it goes south, and they all shoot like one arrow and disappear.
Well,
I'm like, maybe you guys should have more arrows.
I know. I feel like they could have won that fight even better. But basically, I think what happened, if I'm remembering right, is like for a minute, like Shizu's men kind of get the upper hand, but then Kane shows up along with like all these guys who are like in thick armor and like AK-47, like or like machine guns.
Right. So we should say that everybody in this movie has a bulletproof Kevlar suit on.
Head to toe.
But these guys that are coming in now are smart, and they put on a face mask too, just in case like someone shoots them in the face.
Yeah, they're the most well protected.
Right.
They're like the underlings, and they actually have proper protection.
Yeah, they look tough as hell to kill.
Yeah, basically they only have like one vulnerability, is like shooting him like,
right in the neck,
right under like the chin or something.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, after those guys show up, Shizu and his men kind of fall back, and so now we have kind of two action scenes going on at once, where Shizu and his men are fighting some guys in a hallway, while the bad guys then make it up to the roof and start fighting with John and Akira. So the rooftop fight, Akira has a bow and arrow, and John just has his gun, and they kind of have this long fight where, like, you know, he's like you were saying, he's like shooting those armored guys underneath the chin and stuff, and using all types of karate. She's like hitting them with like bow and arrows.
Another thing is, like, everyone he kills, he basically has to shoot in the head, and like there's just like not enough like blood and brains. They just like fall down and they look normal. I'm like, this guy is like, the top of his head should be missing, you know?
I will say there was a couple times in this movie where like he shot guys after they were already on the ground that I'm like, I think he was dead already, but okay,
Yeah.
being safe.
He was doing that zombie land. He was giving everybody a double tap.
Double tap, yeah. But anyway, that rooftop scene was pretty fun. Then we get, and the order of operations on this, I don't really remember. I remember John and Akira eventually go into this other room where they fight a bunch of guys. She's like stabbing this guy up the stairs, and he's killing a bunch of fools.
Part of me was like, is this going through his suit? And it's like they broke the, I don't know, the rules there for a minute.
Well, no, I think the way the suit would work is like if a bullet's coming out fast enough, like
It's like, you know, like Dune, where like you shoot the guy and nothing can happen. You have to have the slow blade.
Yeah, I never understood that in Dune, really, but yeah, no, it's got to be like the right speed to get through.
that's true. Yeah, it kind of was like that.
Also, like, they have the bulletproof suits, which is a good idea, but like, were armor-piercing rounds never invented in this universe?
Well, apparently they invented those like firework rounds that explode on impact.
Yeah, those are cool.
Should have used more.
That doesn't
of
come up
those.
till later, but yeah.
But anyway, in this fight, Akira ends up eventually taking a shot to the guts or something, which kind of injures her and pulls her out of the fight. And then we got a scene in the hallway where Shizu's men are like kind of wrecking shop, but at the same time, like Kane is just like in this corner, like eating noodles.
Yeah, he's got like a bowl of pho, just waiting for things to simmer down before he gets involved.
And so eventually that cheaty guy's like, come on, we're paying you or whatever. Get in the game or whatever. So he's like, fine. So yeah, he starts like fighting guys. And like you referenced earlier, there's this spot where he plants these like kind of motion detectors. So when the bad guy, or well, the guys he's fighting anyway, come in, like when they pass, it'll make a ding dong sound, which alerts him to their location, so he can then like shoot them. But then it is inconsistent because like that's the only part of the movie where he uses that
strategy.
And there are like multiple times throughout the movie where he's not only finding people and stabbing them, he's also like shooting them. So it's like, I guess we're just supposed to meant to believe they made a noise that he could hear, and he, you know, like that. So then John ends up in this like wing of the Continental that's almost like a museum. Like there's all these glass display cases,
right? Convenient
with
weapons,
like weapons in them and stuff. And this is a long ass fight where he ends up like getting some nunchucks, and there's just, you know, a lot of gunplay, a lot of nunchuck play.
It does go on for a very long time.
I mean, it's entertaining and
I like
it's
the
well
use of the
done.
nunchucks. I thought it was a cool new weapon they used.
Yeah, it is good to have like throw in
they
a new
do
weapon.
change up things every once in a while, and I feel like creative use of like the scene in the space was pretty prevalent throughout.
Yeah, I do like that it's not always just guns. They're
Yeah.
in these movies. There's, you know, knives, swords, nunchucks. They mix in a.
And you know, some movies, like, it feels like the action hero loses object permanence. Like, he has a weapon for a second, he throws it away and gets it. Like, in this one, he's like, oh, this is useful. I'll hold on to it.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, he even like, he puts them like around his neck for a minute so he can keep using them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well done scene. And of course, like all these glass cases, he's like being thrown through and shit. They're all shattering and being shot. So eventually Kane shows up, and that's like the boss fight, and they're fighting each other. I think they kind of have a conversation where they realize that like they don't really want to do this, but they're both doing it because of their family. Yeah. And there's one scene where like Kane gets John down and like his gun's empty and he's like, "Did I get you? Are you dead?" or something like that. And he's just like staying quiet because like
there's a lot of times where I was like, maybe if they're just quiet, what if you just quietly aim your gun at his head and
But yeah, then eventually like John makes a small sound and he's like, "Oh shit!" So then there's like this scramble where there's shooting each other, but
like we're saying, so this is like this whole. Like it's a super long scene that transitions to the boss fight or whatever, but like the whole time, like there's part of me that's like, it feels like I'm just watching a dance. They're just dancing around on screen, and I'm like, okay, here's the dance, and then Kane shows up. And I don't know if either of you got this, but like I was getting this like Gangnam Style like Psy vibe, and like every time he's fighting someone, I was like, Open Gangnam Style, and he's just like, I don't know, it was too much.
I can't say I thought of that, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm very thankful they didn't do that needle drop.
We should do we'll make like a little remix.
I bet it would go hard. Actually.
I bet it would. That would be good. Yeah.
Somewhere like in between they get separated for a minute and they're going to fight again, but then like Mr. Nobody shows up and he kind of takes a shot at Kane. It doesn't like hit him, but like it gives John enough distance to where like he escapes.
Yeah, there's kind of like side thing where like Mr. Nobody is watching the bounty on John Wick and it's like at 18 million, and so he's got this thing where he's like, I don't want him to die yet. We need to get this bounty up. And so like there's a number of times in the movie where he subverts like John being killed or something.
Right.
And yeah, I'm like, I mean, you're wandering around with your dog in like homeless clothes. Maybe 18 million is enough. Maybe 18 million is a good number for you.
Yeah, I thought his motivation in the movie was questionable. You're right. I kind of think he, this idea that he's not satisfied until the number gets up even higher. But
yeah, I wonder what he was trying to get. Like I thought maybe he was trying to buy something for somebody or like save somebody's life or something. I don't know.
It never really ties into his motivation.
That's true. I kind of wish they would have given him a reason to where we would have been like, oh, that's why he's doing it. It's a little bit more.
He was trying to get like diamond chains for his dog or something. This dog needs to bling.
Anyway, outside, John gets in another fight. He's taking down some guys, but he's helped again by Mr. Nobody, who doesn't tell John like what he's up to, but he's like tells John he better take care of himself. John at that scene also takes the bad guys wearing like the symbol of the Marquise. Like this metal badge, basically, or whatever. So he takes that. So now this I thought was a little weird. So Kane confronts Shizu, wanting him to give up John's location, but I'm like, John is still like not far from there, and like, does Shizu even really know where John's going? Like maybe he does, but I don't know. But basically,
yeah. Now that you mention it, is
yeah.
This guy's just known as a tracker.
So Shizu refuses, and that leads to a sword fight between Shizu and Kane. And again here, Kane doesn't really want to kill Shizu, but Shizu keeps coming at him, so he doesn't, in his mind have a choice. So he eventually kills him.
Yeah, I gotta intervene here. What was Shizu thinking? He had already lost the fight, and he wasn't going to accomplish anything by attacking him one more time for no reason. Like, the guy was ready to walk away from you. Why'd he go for that one last attack on him?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I maybe just his loyalty to John.
In my mind, I was thinking they killed Sharon because of the last guy who ran the Continental, and this guy runs this hotel. Maybe he thought they were going to do the same thing to his daughter, so maybe he thought he had to die to save her.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. Like, because you're right. At that point, like, Kane was willing. It seemed like after he, like, did that blow to his back that I guess didn't kill him, that he was, like, willing to let him go. But then he came back at him, and so he killed him. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, at that point, you should probably cut your losses when you're pretty much, like, crippled.
Yeah.
Like, this guy fucked me up real bad.
You won.
You got me. Thanks for being a sportsman. Yeah. Not killing me.
But he kills Shizu right in front of Akira, who is still down, like, injured because she got hit in the guts or whatever. And, like, she thinks for a second about taking up a sword to Kane, but he's like, don't do it. And I think he even has a line here where he tells her that, like, he'll be waiting when she's ready. Yeah. So this is my question to you guys. Now, I don't know if you guys heard this, but they're already doing a John Wick spinoff that I think is called The Ballerina with Ana de Armas. So I'm looking forward to that. But this made me think that they're setting up a spinoff with Akira.
That's what I thought.
Because I could totally see them doing a movie with, like, the possible revenge film Akira going up against Kane.
It makes sense. It's intriguing storyline. I think it'd be good.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't know if you guys thought that, but I definitely was like. To me, it's like, okay, they set up this character and they set up this motivation. I would think they would use that again. Well,
we're coming up on the scene next where she runs into John on the train.
Right.
And
so John like gets on a subway train, and then Akira gets on as well, which makes me wonder, like, how'd she catch up to him? She seems pretty, injured or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, she basically tells him what happened and that he's responsible for her father's death. And I think she has a line that says, like, if he doesn't take out Kane, that she will.
Yeah.
And he's like, I understand.
Yeah.
But then, spoiler, he's not going to take him out. So yeah, I kind of feel like they were setting up another movie there, but I guess we'll see. Also, like, they set up this Mr. Nobody guy. Do you think they might use him in a movie down the line as well?
I think so. I don't see why not. He's been a fun character in this movie. Like the whole dog angle that they brought back with him.
Yeah.
Something funny that happens like a number of times is like one of his commands to the dogs is nuts.
Yeah.
Right.
And he just like grabs people's nuts. The thing is, like, he'd have people like down and out and he'd do that to them. And then like after the dog chewed on their nuts for like 10 seconds, he'd shoot him in the head.
Yeah, really just torturing people.
Now, I think I might have this wrong, but I think it was around this point in the movie that we see that John's bounty is raised up to $20 million. So now Winston and the Bowery King meet by the destroyed Continental. And Winston says he wants a meeting with John. And I might be getting these scenes mixed up a little, but it's somewhere in there. So now Mr. Nobody has a meeting with the Marquise at a horse stable. Mr. Nobody says that he, he's kind of putting over his skills as a tracker because he was able to track John to Osaka. And he says he will track down John for like a large sum of money. I forget exactly what he wants.
$23 million.
And then
also a pension or something?
Yeah, like once the job is complete, like he gets another like $23 million or something. Yeah. Something like that. So basically the Marquise agrees to that, but after he stabs Mr. Nobody through the hand. And I forget what his point was here. He's like, okay, you can either remove the knife or you can painfully like remove your hand. And like one symbolizes something and one symbolizes something else.
Well, if he pulls it out, that means that he only cares about himself. If he pulls it out, that shows his loyalty.
Oh, okay.
So like he has to tear his whole hand.
Yeah.
Like this section of his hand.
It looked pretty painful. To me, that injury should have made it so like he couldn't have used that hand at all for the rest of the movie. It is bandaged.
Yeah, you kept it bandaged.
So now John meets with Winston at Sharon's grave, and he tells him about the badge he found, and he's like, what is this? And he tells him that that's the symbol of the Marquise, who is basically the man in charge now since he killed, like, the elder in the desert. Mm-hmm. He asks John what's his plan, and John's just like, I'm going to kill them all. And he's like, that's going to do you no good. Like, before his body's even cold, they're just going to have another guy in charge. So he tells John, like, if you really want your freedom back, you're going to have to challenge him to a formal duel. But to do that, you got to get your ticket repaired, and you got to get accepted into an assassin clan. Because apparently, otherwise, you can't make one of those duels. So he tells him he's going to have to go to Berlin. So John shows up to this church in Berlin to meet with. Now, is that like his old clan that he used to?
The Belarus, I think.
Because is that the same clan from John Wick 3 that he meets with? Okay, so like the thing I was confused about is like he used to apparently be with them and do jobs for him, but he was never like formally at that time branded in with them.
No, he was already like part of their family,
but he didn't have like the skin brand.
I think that was to symbolize that he was like out of the family, like they not out of the family, but that they were doing something for him, like I don't know.
It would be like a different level inside the gang or something.
Something like that. Some sort of tradition thing. I'm not sure what it was.
Okay. He's tracked to that church by Mr. Nobody. So Mr. Nobody calls Marquise and is like, hey, I want my money for tracking him here. And then the Marquise basically reneges on his deal and says, no, if you want any money, you're going to have to kill John.
See, at this point, like after somebody like goes back on their word, like why are you making more deals with the same person? It's like, oh, you were full of shit that time, but let's make a different deal.
Well, and they make such a big deal about how the high table and this whole structure is based on these stringent rules, and like if you break the rules, there's consequences. And then this guy just broke the rules. Yeah, like he broke his word. So I'm like, I guess they're just trying to paint him as a real piece of shit, but we already knew that.
Guy's a real dick.
So John's old clan is about to kill him. They're hanging him because he killed the elder and the Marquise is in charge. The Marquise like sent this lieutenant, like underboss guy, who ended up killing their old leader and is now like in charge of them. And so they hate this guy. But John tells him about his plan of, that he can kill the Marquise if he can challenge him to a duel, but he needs to be in their group. And so like basically like the woman who's kind of the leader of that group now says, okay, we'll do that if you kill this guy we hate that killed, like, I guess her father or the leader of whoever the leader of their clan was. Now, so I believe this character, because in the Rotten Tomatoes, like, they said there was a character named Killa, which I believe is this big fat guy they're going to see.
Oh, okay.
This guy's like obnoxious, man.
Well, the thing of it was, because I was telling him last night after we seen it, I was like, is this an actor like I should know that they like made look fat, kind of like with Colin Farrell in The Penguin, or is this just like a legitimately like big fat guy that can move? Yeah. But the picture they have is like this kickboxer guy who's in really good shape. So I think they kind of put a fat suit on him. Okay. Because we've seen a scene later, like he's throwing like roundhouse kicks and things a guy of that size should not be able to do.
Yeah, he was making moves.
Right. So yeah, Killa, he's like this fat guy with gold teeth. He plays with cards. And so basically they have a guy that works for their clan pretend that he captured John and brought him there. They have a bit of a conversation, but not too long after, both Kane and Mr. Nobody show up. And they're kind of at this standoff because they all want to kill John, right? For some reason, like the guy suggests that they play a hand of cards, which at this point I was like, I don't know about this scene.
They have a lot of like scenes of him doing like card tricks and stuff. So you're like, this guy can definitely cheat,
Right, and so that's what happens. They play this hand of cards, which Killa wins by cheating. And I don't even, was this point just like that he has all the cards that he's...
I guess in the end, because he deals everybody like a good hand, and he goes from one to the next, progressively getting better and better. And at some point, like, Kane, like he has cards, and he's like, well, blah blah blah, like he can't see him, and then
Right.
like he calls out exactly what the hand is.
Yeah, how do you do that?
I'm thinking like they're saying that he can like feel it on the card.
That's pretty intense.
I mean, how else would he have?
I have no idea.
Unless he's faking the blindness, which he might be.
Yeah, he could. That'd be so great in the next movie.
We just find out he could see the whole time.
Really lures people in.
So now, like, so this I thought was kind of stupid too. John, like, gives Killa like a really bad paper cut with the card.
Oh, yeah.
He's like able to actually like slice his throat open a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, this causes like hell to break loose. So like Kane and Mr. Nobody start fighting like all the other guys in the room, while Killa escapes and John goes after him. Like, but he like shoots him in the ass like as he's
A couple times. Yeah.
right. So John chases Killa into a huge dance club. And I wrote, despite killing people with guns and axes, everyone continues to just dance. They don't care. They're like, nah, it'll settle
Not
itself.
a care in the world.
Yeah, they're 100% just background.
So this I thought was silly. Like eventually, like they do like
Not until everything's over, which they've been placid, as anything the whole time. And then, like, when the fight's over, everybody's, like, milling out. Like,
I'm
let's
like,
get out of here.
Fight's over, guys.
I'm
let's
like,
go.
now you leave.
This place is boring. I don't want to be here now.
Not the spot now.
At one point, John is like thrown down by Killa to like the top floor of this club to the bottom floor, which is like a huge drop, and he ends up being just fine.
Well, he hits a pipe in the middle to slow him down.
Oh, that's right. That's
Always those nice pipes to slow you down.
And like I mentioned before, like this Killa guy, he's like doing roundhouse kicks and shit. That the guy hits like.
Yeah, that was very impressive. I was like, there's no way this dude's actually a fat guy.
Actually, even the kickboxer guy in the fat suit, like props to him for being able to pull off those moves.
Yeah.
Eventually, John kills Killa, and he takes his gold tooth as a proof of death.
Yeah, when he kept punching him in the face, I was like, is he trying to kill him that way? Or like, what's going on?
Well, the woman beforehand mentioned that he needed proof of death. And then when I saw he had those big gold teeth, I'm like, oh, that's going to be it.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to get, like, all of them.
That's kind of what I thought. I thought he would have the whole grill.
He
Not
just gets one tooth. Yeah, I assumed it was like a bridge or something, like 3 teeth altogether.
That's what I thought, too. As John is leaving, Mr. Nobody attempts to, like, snipe him, but he's stopped by Kane from doing so.
Right. He has a lot of people who intervene in his death.
Right, yeah. So John gets a brand on his arm. He gets branded into the assassin clan. And so this gives him the ability to challenge for the duel. So John chooses Winston as his second, who delivers the duel challenge to the Marquise. The Marquise, of course, doesn't want to accept, but he really has no choice because he's got to like abide by the laws of the challenge or whatever. The Marquise tells Winston that as John's second, he will be killed if John loses. And then he says, such is life, as a callback to that conversation he had with Sharon earlier.
You can kind of tell that the Marquise does want to like squirm his way out of this fight.
Definitely.
But Winston almost like talks him into it. Like, well, if you win, you'll be the greatest. Like people.
That's true. Like, I don't know if maybe he could have squirmed his way out, but you're right. Winston does kind of talk to him in a way there that makes him like accept it.
Yeah.
So now John and the Marquise have a discussion to discuss the terms of the duel. And I thought this was weird. So they choose time, place, and weapons. And basically they both call out like what they want. But then they randomly draw these cards and like the high card like wins or something.
Yeah.
And like Clancy Brown is officiating this whole thing. And also Kane and Winston are looking on as well. So the duel will be at sunrise with dueling pistols. And I forget the name of the place, but it's somewhere in France, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in Paris, and then it's like a
Like a church or something?
church. Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't sure what that name they said, if that was like a city or if it was that church. I wasn't, but they
I think it was the name.
Yeah,
of the
they were
church.
definitely in Paris.
okay. Yeah, they were okay. John has a discussion with Kane inside of a church. John first like lights a candle, and I think he's just kind of like paying tribute to his dead wife or something like that. And then he has a discussion with Kane, and it's basically kind of about how their love of their families have gotten them into this whole mess, and that they're friends with each other, but they're both gonna take each other out, basically. A conversation like that. So John meets up with Winston, and Laurence Fishburne has made his way over to France. Oh, one thing I wanted to bring up that it's something that's skipped over in these movies, but is like, even like in the second movie when they first put like a bounty on John, like assassins just come out of the woodwork. They're all over him. And even like through this whole time in the third movie too, there's this bounty on him. He's traveling overseas. Like, is he flying private? Like, how is he avoiding like how is he getting to these different places without being killed?
I think they don't explain it, but I think Laurence Fishburne is the one who's providing him these like routes back, ways to get there. That
Getting him like safe passage somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they could have maybe said it, because I'm like, how is he globetrotting and not getting killed like everywhere he touches down?
Yeah, once they raised it to like from 18 million to like 25 million, then like everybody in the city's after him.
Yeah.
I was like, what's everybody's like thing about like 18 million? Nah, and then, like,
I know. What's
25 million? Okay.
What's the economy of this world where they're like 18? I think you can do better than that. So yeah, he meets up with Laurence Fishburne, who gives him a new suit because of like.
Laurence Fishburne's got all the suits in this movie.
I know, he's like, yeah, this suit's it's bulletproof, but it's getting a little dirty. Let's give you a new one. I was telling him too, like, okay, so we're to believe that the suits are bulletproof, fine. But does it not like sting like a motherfucker when they get hit?
Right, like, are your ribs not taking it?
Because he gets hit a lot.
Yeah, he should be like head to toe bruises.
Nothing but bruises.
Just welted.
He also gives him like a fancy gun where he's like, oh, it holds 21 bullets or something.
Yeah, let's pause here for a second. Now, is this like a real commercial gun? I forget what it was called. Was it like a Viper or something?
Viper, yeah, I don't know.
Because it felt like he was doing like a commercial for this gun.
Oh yeah, he did the whole laydown. This blah blah blah, this and that can go both ways, ambidextrous.
It would be funny
if, for Smith and Wesson.
That would be funny if this movie, was sponsored by Smith and
There's
Wesson.
like a little thing in the corner, go to blah blah blah.
Now, did he also mention like he's like, and when it's empty, it's got teeth or something? And then I think there's a scene later where he's like stabbing a guy with like the empty gun or something.
I think you're right. Like he pulls like the receiver off or something, and then like stabs him with it.
Yeah,
something weird. Yeah.
So now the Marquis, he is trying to squirm his way out of this duel. So he directs Chibi to kill John before sunrise. And he also increases the bounty at this point, I believe, to 26 million. And like this gets all the assassins in Paris like into it. They're like, oh, it's not 20 million anymore. It's 26 million. Hell yeah. So we kind of get this montage of them like loading up their guns and their cars with guns and things like that.
Now, a lot of these guys do seem like they're either in the underworld or professionals. But I mean, for that kind of money, I'd see like, Billy Bob like getting out his shotgun, jumping in his truck. I mean, that's a lot of Powerball tickets. I
gotta say though, if I was one of these assassins and I knew John Wick's reputation, I would not try to do anything but snipe him from a very long distance.
Exactly. That's all I would ever do.
And like, if even like 3 of these guys did that, one of them would have got him. I have to feel. Before everything kicks off, he gets on a boat ride with Winston and Laurence Fishburne. And Winston mentions that like the inscription on Sharon's grave translated to friend. And he's like, what would you guys want written on your tombstones? And of course, Laurence Fishburne says, long live the king. And then John says, loving husband. I would want loving husband put on my grave. So apparently the high table has a DJ that works for him, and she like plays music while at the in between songs. She like, she's like, oh, Mr.
Oh, she's on the radio.
Yeah, she's on the radio, and she's like, talks about how what the bounty's at or whatever, and even like tells like where John Wick's current location is. So like and apparently this is a radio station that all the assassins listen to like keep up with like high price bounties and stuff like that. So I thought that was a little weird, but I guess it's part of the world. It's fine. Okay, so now we're gonna get into a big long stretch of fights. So John has a fight on the streets. Oh, and man, he gets hit by so many cars too.
Oh yeah,
so many cars.
Well, so by this point, I think the bounty had already gone up to 40 million, right?
I don't think it hits 40 million until he has his conversation with Mr. Nobody later.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. So he approves it for Mr. Nobody, and he's like, if I'm going to pay him, I might as well pay anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I think at this point it's at the 26 million. So he has this fight with guys on the street, which eventually leaves him to getting in this muscle car that gets the doors blown off of it.
I just got to intervene. As soon as he gets on the street, after he leaves the subway or whatever he was, he gets noticed immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of me was kind of like, maybe you shouldn't have given him another black suit.
Yeah, maybe dress down a little bit.
Dress him up like a tranny or something.
He'd get attacked then.
So now he's in this muscle car, and Chibi and his group also have cars like that are chasing him. Eventually, they get into this like roundabout area, and there's like this scene where he's like doing like donuts around this group of guys and like shooting them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of like, this is really great driving. But yeah, I was like, maybe instead of looping around them 40 times, you should have just like taken off.
It's probably true. Probably wasting some valuable time. Eventually, that car crashes, and he's shooting guys in like a high traffic area. So like guys are getting hit by cars. Like he gets hit by cars, but nothing fatal. He eventually gets in a fight with that Chibi guy. Who's again pretty tough, and eventually Mr. Nobody shows up, and he stops Chibi from killing John by sicking his dog on him, and this allows John to escape on a motorcycle. Do you guys remember anything from that scene? Like you want to like highlight? I mean, it's so much action. It's hard to remember everything that's going on.
It's basically just a lot of people attacking, a lot of gunfire, a lot of cars flying past.
I remember there was like a scene where like some guys like get hit and then get flown up in the air, and he's like shooting them while they're in the air, like after they get hit by the car.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I was looking for civilian casualties. It was amazing that there didn't seem to be any.
Just the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like during the scene, they like tipped over so many cars and disabled so many cars, and like there's never like any road jam going on.
Yeah.
Until like the entire scene's over, you're leaving, and then there's like, oh, there's the road jam.
Like maybe you can't drive over the dead bodies. I guess.
So yeah, John escapes on a motorcycle, and he eventually gets cornered by a bunch of other vehicles. And I kind of felt during this scene like if someone was quick on the draw, they probably could have killed him here. But anyway, he has to get off the motorcycle, which he like launches into this bad guy. And
that was a cool thing.
and he gets in this empty house. So he's in this house, and like all the bad guys show up, and he's killing some. And then at the same time, Mr. Nobody shows up. And this is where, since they're getting closer to the dual site, the church, Marquise finally agrees to pay him $40 million. And like you were saying, since he's doing that, he ups the bounty for everybody to $40 million. So now Mr. Nobody, because he wants the bounty, he starts actually killing some of the other guys as well.
Right, like he doesn't need the competition.
Yeah.
So he's shooting them. And at some point at this fight in this house, this is where John picks up like somebody else's gun, and this is where he has like the firework rounds.
Yeah, he's like got these incendiary rounds. I like this because so they have this big long scene that's like shot from like top down.
Yeah,
and you see him going into these rooms, and he's just like shooting all these guys with these incendiary rounds and his other gun too, but like he's just like catching everybody on fire.
The thing is, there's like somebody coming around every corner, and like he always knows exactly where everybody is.
He's very aware.
Yeah.
But I did like that scene quite a bit. And eventually it comes down to just him and Mr. Nobody. And actually, John ends up getting the better of Mr. Nobody. And he starts choking him out. And he's about to kill him. But at that time, that chibi guy shows up. And the dog is sicked on him once again, I think. But Chibi is going to kill the dog. And John sees that. So, like, John takes a shot at him so that he doesn't kill the dog.
Right.
Of course, the dog connection in this movie, in this franchise.
Gotta respect it. It knows its roots.
So John gets away, and at this point, Mr. Nobody is like, well, damn, he saved my dog, so, like, maybe I should help him. So now, they find this, like, ridiculous, like, set of stairs that's like really long.
Right. Apparently, like there's these stairs going up to this church.
It's like 222 steps, I think.
Yeah, they say how many.
So John has this ridiculously long fight where there's just guys all the way up these set of stairs, and he's shooting them and stabbing them and narrowly avoiding getting hit. He gets all the way to the top, and that chibi guy hits him and literally like knocks him like all the way down.
Yeah,
it was like a Homer Simpson's fall. Like
I thought this was kind of like in the theater. It actually gets a laugh. Yeah, but it was kind of silly because at some point I'm like, I think he's putting extra effort into this to roll further. I'm like, I think he could maybe stop this if he wanted to. But no,
like, there were those little spaces where it flattens out,
right?
And it seemed like maybe he can stop it there, but he just
keeps going.
Didn't he stop briefly one spot, and then it like
and then the guy
did it again, like
yeah. So when he gets to the bottom, Kane shows up, and like Kane wants to get him to the duel. So now Kane starts helping him, and so they're both fighting their way.
I think Kane's reasoning is that if he does the duel and he wins, he can save his daughter from all of this high table stuff. So
part of me was thinking like, you know what, Kane, because they're down to the wire. They got like 2 or 3 minutes to get to this fight. I'm like, maybe Kane could have helped out a little bit sooner.
Right.
After he's like mincemeat at the bottom of these stairs, he's like, come on, pal, we got like 3 minutes here.
Maybe he's smart. He's like, I can win this duel now.
Yeah.
And
also around that same time, Mr. Nobody shows up again. He does the nut.
Oh yeah,
sicks the dog on Chibi's nuts. So he goes down, and then he like shoots him because he like threatened the dog earlier. Yeah. And then just for comedy, the dog of course takes a piss on him.
Yeah.
So John gets to the duel just in time. Now I got a question: did they, when they were setting up the duel in the first place, did they set up that Kane was actually going to, be the guy in the duel rather than the Marquise himself?
Well, when they were drawing cards, like at the end, like he said he wants to do a, what do they call that substitution?
Oh, like a nomination or something.
But anyway, so yeah, he said Kane, and then Kane was like, at some point he's like, I'm not going to do it. And it's like, is he going to do it or is he not going to do it because he threatened him after that or something?
Yeah, I was a little unclear on that, but
yeah, he's like, Kane has been nominated as like a contender for him.
Could John be like, okay, Winston, you're stepping in for me?
Well, that's kind of like, when it was questionable whether he's going to show up, it's like, well, maybe Winston can be his like substitution. Such is life.
So yeah, they did this thing where they give them dueling pistols that have just one shot in them. And they're going to duel at 30 paces. If there's no winner, they'll go to 20 paces. And then no winner, they'll go to 10 paces. So at 30 paces, they both shoot and they both wing each other. At 20 paces again, they wing each other. And on that one, like Kane got like gut shot. So he got a little worse than John, who like got hit in the arm or something. And then at 10 paces, Kane shoots. John doesn't. John like gets hit in the guts and he goes down. And the Marquise is like, ooh, I get to take the coup de grace now. and like he goes to kill John, and then Winston's like, "You idiot! He hasn't shot yet." And then John uses that one last bullet to kill the Marquise. My question is, do you think if Winston didn't distract the Marquise at that time, that he would have just killed John?
Well, it seemed like John was kind of taking his sweet time about it.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that momentary distraction was enough.
I mean, you got to believe that John's a quick draw. Like he might have gotten the shot off anyway, but I mean, you got to suspend disbelief, I guess.
right. But anyway, Clancy Brown declares that basically everybody wins. I guess. But honestly, how does that work? Because like, neither Kane or John died right in that moment. Is it because the Marquis stepped in for him?
No, the Marquis released Kane.
Yeah.
And said he was free with his daughter.
Oh, just because he agreed to take the nomination.
And then John killed him, so John was free from the binding agreement.
The Marquis thought the match was over, and then Kane asked him, like, "Hey, so am I free and my daughter?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're both free."
Oh, okay. So yeah, Clancy Brown says John is free from the high table, and that Kane can be with his daughter as well. So now, I think there's a quick conversation between like Kane and John where John's like, "You owe me one" or something. Anyway, Kane goes off, and then John has this conversation with Winston where he's like, "Will you take me back home?" And he's like, "Of course." And like, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, this part's ridiculous because he's like, "Yeah, I'll take you home," and then instead of like getting him help, John just walks down the stairs and dies. And he's like, "Well, such is life, I guess."
Well,
I guess the agreement was just to take his dead body home.
Yeah, see, I didn't put it together until after he died. He's like, "Oh." He's saying, "Will you take my remains home?" Like, I didn't put it together in that moment.
Same here.
But at the same time, you do have to wonder, like, could they have rushed to get a medical attention and maybe save it? Probably not.
They should really have a doctor on these duels.
Kane also in need of a doctor.
But John, he goes and sits down on the steps, and he gets a vision of his dead wife, and then he dies. I feel like I should have seen this coming. Well, I always thought, the John Wick franchise is one of those that could end with him dying just because, like, the whole thing is he loves his wife and you can kind of still have a happy ending because you're like, oh, he's with his wife, And even, like, though they set it up earlier where he's like, put loving husband on my tombstone, I guess I still didn't think at that point that they were going to kill him in this movie, but...
They didn't have, like, one of those big sappy things where, like, he was running to his dog. That should have been the after credits.
Not his wife, his dog.
But anyway, the movie ends back in New York. Winston and Laurence Fishburne say goodbye to John at his gravesite, which of course is next to his wife's, and it says "loving husband."
Yeah, hers says "loving wife" and his says "loving husband."
So yeah, where do you guys think? I mean, obviously we know that John's story is wrapped up. I did hear a rumor, though. I think it's just a rumor at this point that ballerina movie might have like a John Wick cameo. So maybe it like takes place like before the events of this movie, so that we could potentially get, more John Wick, even though he's dead.
Hey, I'm down. That's great.
Yeah, I'd be totally down for that.
Yeah. Or was he okay and they just like
faked his death?
Faked his tombstone.
I'd be okay with that too, honestly.
I wouldn't want him to do that. I do like the finality of it.
Maybe he'll come back as a zombie.
Double tap.
You really can't kill him. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the movie and enjoyed this franchise, and I am interested in potential spin-offs that they could do.
Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, because they did have other assassins. Like, do you think they'd ever bring Common back from the second movie?
Yeah, that's true. He survived.
He did survive, yeah.
I can see him coming back. Yeah.
I don't think she's a great actress, but didn't Ruby Rose survive? Or did she on the second movie?
Oh, no, she didn't, because he stabbed her and then pulled it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting, too, because she was like... She was deaf, wasn't she? And
Yeah.
she like did sign language. So they're like, we have to make assassins that have some sort of defect.
It's good, man.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
awesome.
Yeah. You know what I thought was weird about this series, though? Why does Chapter 3 have a subtitle and none of the other ones do? Because it's John Wick, John Wick Chapter 2, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, and then John Wick Chapter 4. Like, I'm like, why did they subtitle one and not any of the others?
I don't know.
It's just a bizarre naming convention.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys can think of that we haven't covered that you maybe wanted to point out about the movie?
I think we covered everything.
Okay, guys. Big question. What would you give this scale 1 to 10?
Give it a solid 8 out of 10.
I'm thinking 7.5.
I think I'm rolling in around 6.5.
Technically fresh.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you: did you enjoy it enough that you'll?
Hey, here's my commendation. I didn't fall asleep.
Because it was so loud.
It doesn't matter. I've fallen asleep during some action movies.
Did you like it enough that you would consider going back and watching 2 and 3?
I don't think I need that. No.
You're like, I know how it ends. But no, very, very enjoyable franchise, and I do hope they make more spin-offs than just the ballerina. I would like to see that,
The whole world.
Akira Kane
Yeah.
movie too. And,
Yeah, for sure.
And I just like how these guys do action, really.
Yeah. Kane was very fun to watch, too. I definitely would watch him again, like in the movie. So, yeah, I do hope they bring him back.
Like I was talking at breakfast with OJ about this, but they also in front of the movie they advertised this movie called Sisu, and it's apparently from the same studio. But it's like, is the guy Russian?
I don't know.
I think Finnish. I think.
Oh yeah. I think they said something like it's a
Finland.
Swedish or Finnish word or something. But he's getting attacked by all these Nazis, and he's just killing all these Nazis in just crazy fucking ways. I was part of me was kind of like, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too. Like, maybe if that reviews well, I would think about
They
it.
have this
I've
scene.
heard good things.
They have this scene where there's this Nazi standing there, and just like this landmine comes flying through the air and like hits him right in the head.
Right.
I was like, this is crazy enough that it might work.
Man, Nazis are like the eternal bad guys. You can always use
It's
them.
always fun to watch them die.
But I don't know. That one looked interesting.
It did, yeah. I saw that trailer. I was like, yeah, I would consider that one.
Yeah. They knew who they were targeting with this John Wick audience.
And we're thinking about doing Dungeons and Dragons because it's getting good reviews. You guys want to do that next week?
For
if they're-
sure.
Yeah, I'd give that a shot. It seems like it's got like a lot of tongue in cheek.
Yeah, lots of good humor and
a lot of humor.
I heard that Chris Pine is the most Chris Pine can ever get in this movie.
Yeah, they had that in the trailer. Yeah.
Like I never really thought about it. I saw like an interview with Tarantino where he said he's probably like the best actor of his generation. I was like, I didn't know he was like that league.
Yeah.
Who, Chris
Chris
Pine?
Pine, yeah.
Well, Tarantino just announced his last movie. You think he'll use Chris Pine?
He always takes the
Sounds
best
like it.
people he can get. So I mean, it's a possibility.
I think there was a rumor that he was going to cast Kate Blanchett, but that's just a rumor.
Yeah. So, yeah. Who knows what his last project is? Or
It's
who
called.
he needs.
They announced it's called The Movie Critic, and it takes place in the 70s.
I don't know. We'll see.
I was kind of hoping that he would do something in the sci-fi realm, because like there was a rumor at one point that he was possibly going to work on a Star Trek movie, and then that never happened. But I'm like, well, if he can't do Star Trek, I'd at least like to see him do something in the sci-fi realm because he's never done it.
Yeah, he said he's supposed. Well, it's supposed to be his last movie, but apparently he's going to do TV series and shit. So he's not done.
Yeah, I don't know why he's so hell-bent on just doing 10 movies. It's like so many directors have done, like, Spielberg has done like who knows how many movies, and he's still making good ones.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something about just getting old and
He wants this like
Moving
legacy of 10 movies. You're like, But that's fine. That's fine. Whatever.
But yeah, if he makes some TV series, I'm sure it'll be good. So.
I still have not got around to watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, me either.
I've seen all of his other movies, I believe.
He said it like he thinks it's his best film, and I was like, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't his best for me.
For me, Kill Bill is easily his best.
Kill Bill was amazing. I love Django.
See, I wasn't high on Django. But yeah, that'll I think will do it for our review of John Wick Chapter 4. And hopefully we'll see you guys again next week for some Dungeons and Dragons talk. You guys got anything else you want to talk about?
Nope.
All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. Well, we thank everybody very much. If you like this review, please, share it with other people because we like doing these reviews. They're a lot of fun. If you will, subscribe both to the YouTube channel and to our podcast on your podcast service of choice. Give us thumbs up, comments. You can tell us if you want us to review anything else for you. We'll be happy to look into that. And why not come over and talk to us on Twitter as well, guys? Where can people find you on the Twitter?
A name for this too, and that's number 2.
At Unsolicited SUG.
And you can, of course, find me at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that's going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.